Howdy YouTube. Before I start this video, I want to remind you I'm doing a Twitter Q&A. If you want like the details and you missed the video I posted earlier this week, I'll post a link there that explains it, but basically you ask me questions on Twitter and then I will make a video to respond to those. And they can be related to the fact I'm genderqueer and an adult, or being trans, or not related to that at all, whatever you want to know. My Twitter along with my other social media links are in the description box below, so don't forget to do that, it's still going on. And I'll probably answer your question in a video. So, I don't know like what to call this topic or like what I'm gonna name this video yet, but I wanted to talk about this thing. So, I read this book on vacation and I like had just walked up and down my library's rows and picked up books that looked interesting. And this was one of them, Some Assembly Required by Arin, with an A, Andrews. And this is it's like a memoir by a trans guy who it's like mostly his childhood and teenage years. He's actually still in college because he has some active social media if you want to like look him up in general. So I got the book out of the library. It's really short, like 250 pages, so it was a really quick read, probably like 3 days of not real intense reading, and I was done with it. And I will also say it's interesting. It wasn't the best book I've ever read. If you are a teenager or like especially probably like pre-teen age group, it's probably gonna be a lot more relatable to you, and it's just like where you're at in life, because that's where he was at in life for the duration of this book. And like I said, he wrote it like pretty young, so it's also, he's a trans guy, so if you're trans masculine, again, probably a bit more relatable, although at least one of the people in the book is a trans girl who's a teenager that he knows. So there's that. There is a little bit of information from her, I guess I'll say. And I will say too, like, as a trans masculine person, I still find it relatable to talk to in person or read on a book or watch video or whatever, people who are trans women or trans feminine, non-binary people, because even though like sometimes our experiences are different, a lot of times it's just like a flip. So I still find it relatable and also interesting, and those are not voices that get elevated enough in our community, so you should seek them out is what I'm saying. Regardless of who you are, it's important to seek them out. Just like as a white person, it's important to me that I seek out perspectives of people of color, because I don't share that perspective, and again, voices that aren't elevated enough. So enough of that soapbox, because I'm gonna get on another one. So the one thing about this book that kind of, I didn't hate it, but it like bothers me, and it's not just him, it's like literally everyone in society, but he talks about his childhood especially in a very like traditionally gendered manner, and so kind of associating like the activities that you like with a gender. So he talks about how he was is a very outdoorsy person, and so he would go with, I believe, his like male cousins and do outdoorsy things, and in his mind that equated to being a boy because he liked a boy activity. But in reality, girls can be outdoorsy. Girls are outdoorsy. There are lots of girls, cis girls, trans women, who are outdoorsy people and like the outdoors. It's not just the realm of boys. And like makeup, there are men who wear makeup. There are trans men who wear makeup. And I just found it very like, I think it's a natural thing to do because that's what society does. We really box people into like, you like this activity, you play with this toy, you like these colors, you wear these clothes, so that equates to either being a boy or a girl. And there's this really common narrative we hear with trans people that when they were a kid, they really gravitated towards things that had to do with the opposite gender. And the other piece of that is that kids pick up on socialization. As a society, we split stuff by gender so much all of the time, and kids really pick up on that. We really police gender, especially like if there's a study, there's a really great book called Pink Brain, Blue Brain by Liz Elliott, and she talks about like different studies on things, and one of the studies she talks about is toys that you have access to and that you play with. So if you're in a family where the siblings are mixed, they're boys, at least one boy and at least one girl, and there's a mix, you're gonna have access to toys of all genders, and you are going to play with them more freely. And so if you're a girl, you're more likely to play with toys that develop spatial reasoning skills, and like how that kind of follows you with things that you're exposed to and therefore like. Whereas if you're in a family where the siblings are all boys or all girls, it's a lot less likely you're exposed to those other toys, especially if you're a boy. Like, it's probable that if you're in a family of girls, cis girls, we're not even talking about trans things at this point, that somebody at some point is going to give you like a sports ball or some cars or trucks to play with. Like, that's okay in our society because we elevate what we view as masculine. But if you're in a family where it's all boys, it is super duper unlikely that anyone is giving you dress up clothes that are girly, in air quotes of course, or dolls to play with. Like, you probably had some stuffed animals, but even then, like, you're gonna get to an age where that's not okay as a boy. And that's not true, it's just the way society does things. So if you're a kid who's really strongly like aware of your identity, which a lot of trans kids really are, you're you may not even necessarily specifically prefer those things, but you're still gonna gravitate to them because you have this kind of subconscious understanding that in our society, this is for boys, this is for girls. So if I'm a boy, then I should gravitate towards these things, whether that's my inclination or not. So the thing that happens in this book, and that happens all of the time in our trans narratives and our non-binary narratives, are that we talk about like, well, like it's a way to justify our transness, I think. That, well, because I never liked wearing dresses, which is true for me, like that doesn't necessarily have to be a gender specific thing. Like, sure, it's gender expression, but there are a lot of cis women who don't like wearing dresses because they're inconvenient. But there are also people, I know cis men who have said plenty of times, like, I wish it was acceptable to wear dresses because they're very comfortable to them. In Columbus, a lot of guys wear kilts. Like, it's really common to see men in kilts in Columbus. Like, I don't know why, it just is. So, like, there are these ideas we have as society and how we police things. And then as non-binary people or trans people, we have to kind of justify to other people why. Well, we know that this is our gender because, and then we give all of this like supporting evidence. In the book, the guy, like, he genuinely likes the things he talks about liking. Like, I'm not taking away from that, but I do think there's a part of that where it's used to be like, oh, of course a girl or a boy because of these things, and that's not true. Like, you're a girl or a boy or a non-binary person because that's the gender that you feel, I guess. That's what you like know to be true for yourself. There are lots of like internal truths that you'll experience in life, and that's just one of them. And I'm thinking of a friend I have who identifies as third gender. If you met them, they present as their assigned birth sex, they use those pronouns, if you have a discussion, like, they're very open about it, but the majority of people I don't think have any idea that that's really how that person identifies. And their attitude is like, people are gonna perceive them how they're gonna perceive them, and that's fine. And like, they still know that their truth is that they are not cisgender, right? Like, they don't have to justify to other people that they aren't cis. But like, I always think of this example they gave where they talk about being a kid and like the teacher saying like, line up by boys and girls, presumably to go to the bathroom or class or whatever, and they would be like mildly confused for a moment every time. Like, they knew what that meant, but like, they knew at that young age, like, but I am not either of those things, or maybe I'm both, or like whatever, I don't know. That's kind of a long tangent, but that's it. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about, was like, you don't have to use your clothing choices or your gender presentation and expression choices and things that you like to do or activities you were involved in as a kid to explain yourself to other people. That's it. That's what I wanted to say. And then I did like want to just let you know this book exists because, well, it wasn't like my favorite thing ever. I do really like to share media by trans and non-binary people, although this person I'm pretty sure is just binary trans. I have no reason to think otherwise, just because you don't see too much of it. So I was excited that it existed, and my stand just got a little wonky, so I'm gonna say goodbye. Have a great week, and don't forget to send me questions on Twitter.